Couple quick ads before we get to today's show. Want to remind folks that this weekend is the Sam Houston NHC qualifier, March 26th. There's an $1,000 entry fee. It's all bankroll. You keep what you have left. Tour points available, and the top two finishers win an all-expenses-paid trip to the NHC in February 2023. For more details, go to shrp.com. Today's show also brought to you by our friends at First Racing and the Golden Hour Pick 4 and Double any day. Santa Anita and Golden Gate are racing. This is a great horse player friendly bet that connects the last 4 races from those two tracks and also the last 2, of course. Higher player friendly minimums, low player friendly takeout. One of our favorite bets to get involved in, the Golden Hour Pick 4 and Double. You can learn more about these bets at santaanita.com. Hello and welcome to the In the Money Players podcast. This is our show for Wednesday, March 23rd. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornatal. I'm in a bunker, but it's not the Brooklyn bunker. This is a bunker in Port Washington, New York, the town where I grew up. I'm sitting right where the pool table used to be. I hustled many a friend in this exact spot. Normally, when I'm at my mom's house, I like to record upstairs in the office that was my father's once. So it was kind of fun for me to get to record in there. But the neighbor, quite unhelpfully, has decided to, I don't know if it's a leaf blower or a vacuum, but for a small yard, the man is making an intense amount of noise. So rather than deal with that frustration, I have come down here. I actually think it's okay. Wood paneling from the 70s behind me looks a little bit like a hostage video, but I think we can get it in off the goalpost. In any case, very happy to be joined for the first time in a minute by a man. He usually comes to us from the planet Texas, but right now he is up in Saratoga Springs, New York. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. To me, he's still the people's champion. He's Jonathon Kinchen. What's up, JK?
No, I deleted that off my profile, big fella.
What should I say instead? What should I say instead? 2-time. How about this?
No.
We'll go with this one. 2-time. I hate the runner-up, though. But anyway, we'll do it. 2-time Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge runner-up from Fox Sports. He is Jonathon Kinchen. What's up, JK?
Yeah. It's like the runner-up thing. It would be annoying if the people that beat me the 2 times were people that I didn't like. But because it was Matt Miller and because it was Marshall, I'm good with being the 2-time runner-up. Basically canceling out other people's greatest accomplishments as well. So it works for me.
Don't make me talk about the result of the Ultimate Betting Challenge. I was just going to ignore that one, but it is true. We had joked about speaking of mom's basements. We had joked about where certain people were, and they've come back with a vengeance. Christian Helmers with the big move in the UBC. I was like, "Where's my man? Where's JK on the leaderboard here? Did you play in that one?"
I did not. I don't have an ExpressBet account, so I wasn't around anywhere, so I wasn't able to. But I was thinking actually before we got sidetracked, we have to come up with a name for when I am in Saratoga, right? Because You've got the Brooklyn Bunker, you got the Little House on the East Side, we've got the Planet Texas. We don't have anything for here. So I don't think I'm not on the west side, am I? No, I'm on the east side too, aren't I?
You're on the east side. You're in the big house on the east side, though, I think. But I'm not sure that works. I'll leave it to you. I'll let you brainstorm. And of course, the reason you are in Saratoga, this is something we haven't talked about, but has been well publicized on social media. Congratulations are in order because you and Giovanina have gotten engaged, and congratulations for that, my man. It's so happy for you. Was so happy to be up there for the big surprise a couple of weeks ago. How's engaged life going so far?
It's been great. It's a lot of fun. I got to be honest. It was something I never thought I would be participating in again, and it's basically all I wanted to do was participate in. So we're super excited. Lots of changes, will be a lot of here, a lot of there, a lot of here, a lot of Austin. So be a nice little mixture. Austin's fired up about it. He was up here for the entire spring break. We had a good time. Went to Slivo every night.
Here's a shock.
And I've been doing we've been taking this entire month to be like, it's like a kind of a dry month and a healthy month and a workout every day month.
Awesome.
And so I have if you're on a diet this summer, I know all the tricks at Salivo, off menu diet tricks to work around it. Little polenta here.
Give me one now. I'm going to need this information.
The chicken scarp without the potatoes, outstanding, low carb. Okay. The Fra Diavolo without the pasta, you just get it on polenta, outstanding. Okay. There's lots of tricks. I'm
going to probably need that information because I'm not going to do my normal Saratoga gain 20 pounds thing this year. And I think having some wise guy ideas at Salivo is going to probably help me put that together. But yeah, so you work on that name. You work on the name for your broadcast location. It feels like the few times we've had you on in there, you've been in a different place a few times. So we'll leave that with you. You'll get that sorted out. And I noticed you mentioned working out. I'm just going to give you a warning. Whatever you do, don't try to equal Craig Bernick of Glen Hill Farms' output on the Peloton, because the man, apparently in another life, he's like a professional cyclist, because I've seen what the man does on there, and it's just obscene. The man. I think you got stuck on the mute button somehow, JK. I'm not quite sure how, but take yourself off that mute button, and we'll get you right back on here. I'm not sure if you've realized yet. There you go. Now you're back.
I got you. No, it's funny. You know what happened was G is on the Peloton and my AirPods connected to the Peloton. That's why that just happened. Yes. Bernick is nuts. His output. And don't worry, I don't have to go all the way to Kentucky to have to find someone I can't compete with on the Peloton. Right?
Is she in the other room right now?
She's right downstairs. Yeah, she's nutty too on the Peloton. She shames me. Sometimes she'll be on the treadmill right next to me, and I'll be getting started. No matter what the workout says, she never puts the resistance below 38 ever. No matter what, ever. And I'm like, come on, dude, that's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I told you the one time I tried to like match her on this 15-minute ride. I'd seen she had done it, and I was like, I'm gonna give it everything I have, and I'm gonna beat her. Like, I think I went to bed early the night before. I didn't drink. I carb loaded, and she still dunked on me. So, yeah, I don't have to go all the way to Bernick to get put in my place as far as the Peloton's concerned.
We'll get some in-show competition going at some point. We'll have to do one together. It's fun, it is a good time of year to try to getting ready for the season as we get ready to kick off, doing a whole bunch more travel and a whole bunch more clients hopefully coming online in the next few weeks, and looking forward to running around. But the problem when you're running around, as I learned over the last 10 days, 2 weeks or so, making my first trip to England in 2 years, is it's a lot harder. It's a lot harder to be healthy when you're on the road. So when I have this April, I'm with you on this, trying to make it like a little bit of a healthier lifestyle thing before the fun and chaos of the season begin.
I'm off the wagon. I think April 4th is we did 30 days. April 4th is the end, because April 6th we're going to Lexington. It'll be G's first opening weekend, first time at Keeneland, first opening weekend at Keeneland. So we're going to go there. And I don't know if I told you, we're staying. It worked out perfectly. It's a perfect situation where I was at Pegasus, whatever. And
I thought we weren't going to talk about that.
No. It's funny how it happened. And Charlie O'Connor from Coolmore is obviously friends with G because of the relationship coming to Saratoga and going to Salivo. So they're friendly. And then the cap horse that I hit, that ultimately was probably the one that got people wondering where I was. The cap horse that I hit, I had actually given that horse to Charlie as well, and Charlie bet the horse to win. And so right after that was over, I said, "Hey Charlie, we're coming to Lexington. You should let us stay at the house at Coolmore." Immediately after I said that, so I think we're going to stay at Coolmore. Which ought be awesome to wake up and go check on Uncle Mo and Pharaoh and so that should be fun. So we're gonna do that in April. So we'll be at opening weekend at Keeneland, and then I'm going to my first Preakness this year as well.
Oh wow, you've never been? That's amazing.
No, I've never been, and I've told you, we've talked about this, but obviously not on air. But our listeners will be able to hear about it first. That I worked out a thing with phasing where one of the reasons I'm going there is because the Timonium sale is there, and we're going to do a kind of a documentary with the Hennigan brothers. JK buys his first horse.
Fantastic.
And we're gonna go to the sale, and hopefully I can get Jake and Maddie to help me out, and we're gonna buy a horse. They're gonna kind of film it, so I'm gonna be in Maryland for that whole time. So that'll be fun too.
I'll have to pop down. It's not a bad trip from the city at all. And I haven't been. I was at the Preakness a couple of years ago, and 10 Strike had the runner, but I don't necessarily go every year. But it sounds like something to put on the calendar.
And it's going to be fun because it's going to be the middle leg of a horse winning the Triple Crown that I'll be able to be a part of.
I like the sound of that. I like the sound of that.
Oh, way too early Derby predictions.
We'll get there. I'm not ready to get into the nuts and bolts of the Derby predictions just yet. I want to hear how's life with Fox. How have you been? Have you been enjoying yourself doing the TV gig?
It's been great, man. I don't know if people have noticed, but my friend Veronica at Naira built me this like traveling kit where it's got they call it a live view. It's basically like, for the uninitiated, it's basically like 6 cell phones in this one little box. It has the power of 6 cell phones in it. So it will connect to like 6 different towers to send your HD signal back. It's basically how you do remote stuff. So I have this box that has a live view, a camera. I have a light in Austin. I have a light here, like a lighting situation, my mic, and I just get carry on. So if I go home to Austin, I bring my kit with me and I do the show in Austin. If I'm in Saratoga, I bring it back here and set it up. And it's like, it takes me like 5 minutes to put everything together. So that's been awesome. So I've been able to be here and there and still work, which has been great. Basically I'm Friday, Saturday, Sundays, and the shows have been fun. It's we're gearing up for summer again. It's going to be another fun 40 days. And yeah, man, it's exciting. It's exciting. It's something that, like, it's fun because I didn't, you were actually there the morning that I got that DM from, I believe it was Jonathan Fowler at Naira, saying that Tony wanted to meet me, and then I had no idea it was going to turn into what it's turned into, and it's only going to get better because I know there's been some reports, but next year we are going to have the Belmont. It won't be on NBC anymore; it'll be on Fox, and so that'll be awesome to be a part of that coverage, especially if you think about some of the big Triple Crown days where there's been horses running for Triple Crowns. It's going to be fun to be a part of that broadcast, national broadcast on Fox. So, we've talked about it before. Fox's involvement in gambling and involvement in racing is, I feel fortunate to be a part of. Like, they clearly are involved. They've exercised part of their right. I don't know if you saw the press release last year when we signed the extension, part of their right to own part of Naira Bets, which is great because for the industry as a whole, Fox having interest in handle is good.
Yep.
Because they're going to play races on bigger. And we were on FS1. I can't even count how many times we're on FS1 this year. Last year we were on FS1 like 7 times, right? This year it's been a ton. And I think it has a lot to do with that relationship and them seeing the value. And this is just another PSA for people. Be patient with Fox and with us, as sometimes we have those programming issues where the show gets taken off, or it's because there's existing contracts in place with women's volleyball or women's basketball where they've paid to be on Fox.
Yep.
So Fox has to put them on. We don't pay to be on Fox. So as those contracts kind of go away and our contracts go further down the road, that will start happening less. It's just, it sucks. I understand for people you're wanting to watch, but just bear with us. That'll eventually kind of turn. It's not a negative. It's a positive that we're on Fox. So that's my long answer for how Fox is. It's been good. I'm excited.
No, that's great. That's all good stuff. I'll say that I love the fact that there are places, and I'm not going to give out any plugs to non-paying sponsors here, but that you can just stick with the Fox broadcast on certain online platforms. I mean, that's how I like to do it. That's one way to avoid the having to jump around from channel to channel. But also another thing I'll note about Fox is I'm thrilled with the international coverage. That was so cool to have such a memorable Cheltenham Gold Cup on Friday on Fox. I was meant to holler at your man, Tony Olivato, but I think I had a Guinness or two too many and decided that might not be the most prudent move ahead of the Gold Cup. So sadly, I didn't get to connect those dots, but I thought it was great that he was there and great to see, the racing world, I think this is going to happen a lot more in a sports betting, fixed odds, horse racing world where all the jurisdictions become a lot less foreign. And, if you wake up in the morning and over breakfast, you finish your Wordle and you want to bet a race, that you can go on a certain website and go over there and get good, actionable information and be betting English and Irish racing or racing from Dubai or wherever as you go forward. So I think you guys are doing a lot of forward thinking stuff, and I think it's exciting.
And I love the fact that Mike Mulvihill at Fox, who I can see, Tony's the Naira boss, Mike is the Fox boss. One of the things that Mike really believes in, if you follow his Twitter, and I think it's great for racing, is that he believes the landscape of television, the one thing that's still sacred on television is live sports. Because everything else, you can consume it however you want in an on-demand world, whenever you want. But the one thing you cannot consume later is live sports. And so I think that the focus on live sports is racing fits in perfectly, because there's usually at any time of any day there is live racing taking place. If you want to go into the depths of the evenings and play Australia, that's available. And then the early mornings, there's the stuff happening over in Europe. So it's a great partnership, and we're excited to continue to kind of keep trending down that path. And I know that, I'm sure some people are like, well, why don't you guys have this? Why don't you have that? It's a lot of contractual stuff that is just behind the scenes, that other networks have these deals, and it's just, so it's harder to work around. But I think as time goes on, some of those exclusive deals probably won't be as prominent.
No, that makes sense. And I'm looking forward to seeing how it shakes out. That's a great point. The example I always think of is the difference in soccer. And this is actually probably part of our 10-year generation gap too. Like when I was a kid, soccer was almost nothing. I mean, a little bit, we had the NASL and we had the Cosmos, but it wasn't like really a big part at all of the national TV scene here. I think in part because soccer matches didn't really fit the paradigm of the 4 commercial breaks an hour, the way that USA Sports did. But as the world has changed in the way you were just describing, where it's all about giving people a reason to tune in live as opposed to watching shows on demand, now soccer, world football, whatever the hell you want to call it, is like the perfect vehicle. And I think that's part of the reason why somebody like, to take another 10-year generation gap younger than you, somebody like a Matt Bernier grew up like watching all this stuff. It's so interesting to me how like the media landscape changes the way that we as a culture consume sports. And it's something I think is really going to be to a huge benefit of racing going forward, for not just the reasons you described, JK, but because, as I firmly believe, in a sports betting world where everybody has everybody's betting sports on their app and has ways of consuming content via their mobiles, I think horse racing, almost despite itself, is in position to actually thrive more in the next 10, 20, 30 years than it has in the previous. Do you think I'm dreaming a little on that, or do you think there might be something to it?
Yeah. No, I mean, look, I think racing is there's so many things about racing. Obviously, we've kind of dedicated our lives to it and love it as a hobby, but I think racing has so many things set up for itself for growth. We also know, we're very aware, we're not shills or we're not naive. There is also things that we do in racing to shoot ourselves in the foot. Pricing, transparency, things of that nature. I believe that eventually those things will be rectified. I believe the conversations of pricing and transparency are so prevalent that as power starts to change in a lot of these organizations, there will be people that start to take more chances to fix those problems. And this whole idea that it's going to just happen overnight because you've got 3,000 followers and you're tweeting negatively basically every day, like you're
whoever could you meet,
that's not going to change it. Now there's a place for that to bring awareness, and so I obviously I wish it was done a little bit differently. But you can point out the negatives and you can criticize the negatives without basically that being your entire identity. But I do think that there does have to be change if we want to retain our new customers, because the current model is not sustainable, right? For a new player. A new player comes in, and say last year, imagine how many new players come into this game. and every year, every Kentucky Derby, for instance. And so a new player comes in and they bet Mandaloun last year and they're new, they're likely not coming back. We had a chance at them and we lost them because of the situation. And so we have to stop having those moments where we're basically bringing in new fans and then we're losing them. And then also you got to think about the fact that how many new fans did we bring in because of COVID? I don't mean it like that, but because of the way that
we were the only game in town again, and we created a lot of new fans. I mean, it's
we brought them in, and then within a calendar year, we really kind of poked them in the eye. And I'm sure a lot of them stayed, but I'm sure a lot of them lost. So it was like we had this great opportunity, and hopefully we'll get all of that sorted out. And it seems like people are trying to sort it out. And I know they're not sorting it at the rate that a lot of people would like for it to be sorted, but
us included. Us included.
Right.
The speed of change in horse racing is frustrating, to put it very politely. So I mean,
but I think one of the things that you and I have learned about racing is that because it's so rooted in its traditions and what it's been, I have learned that if you try to do anything in racing that's a big enough that crosses that threshold of big change, and you try to do it too fast, you will run yourself out. You will run yourself out of runway, and you'll just get no's. You have to be patient in this game in order to get that change. It's that saying that we've talked about before that President Obama said about, like, you can't turn the ship overnight. If you try to turn the ship overnight, it's going to tip over. Just 2-degree turns at a time, and eventually those 2-degree turns get you going in the right track. And that's what I wish. Now, look, we need people. Some people need to be that hurry up and do it yesterday guy. But I've learned when it comes to even some of the stuff we've done, like even with like the World Horseplayers Tour, getting that done that first time, it's like if we would have hurried up, we would have just got a whole bunch of no's. But we let it take its time to get where we wanted to go. And then and I've also felt the same way about other projects that we're working on.
I like it. And World Horseplayer Tour, speaking of which, not a dead idea. An idea. The circumstances of the world have put it in mothballs for the last couple of years. But something that I think you're right, because we did it in a certain way.
Yeah, but
the most important elements have a chance to ride again.
But the people who maybe are new to the channel, don't even know what we're talking about. The World Horseplayer Tour is an idea that Pete and I had, and basically all it is in a nutshell, in an elevator pitch, is it is a more consumable tournament style that you can consume on television. Watching the final table of the contest with 3 letters is the most boring thing in the history of the world. I mean, worse than watching paint dry. I mean, if you look back, and I mean that, I'm not trying to be, that's not a vindictive thing, but I'm just saying, like, if you look back since there's a final table, if I'm not mistaken, I think maybe only 1 or 2 allowed, there was a change. The person who was leading won. It's boring. It's not, it can't be on TV. So that's one thing. And the problem is that if you can't present the contest in a better way from a media standpoint, you can't generate sponsorship interest. And so that's one thing about it. And then the second part of that is, if you make it consumable for fans and for people to watch it, and you can get sponsorships, then my favorite phrase when we were going through this all the time, you laughed about, we don't have to pay for the carrot anymore that we're all chasing in these contests. And what I mean by that is the BCBC, we pay $10,000, $2,500 goes to the prize pool. Well, imagine if we could get it where a sponsor puts up the $1 million in prize money because they can get that money back from a sponsorship because of viewership. And now basically the 10,000, we just bet with that 10,000 instead of having to chase the carrot that we're all playing for. That's the idea. So it's still alive. We just have to kind of rework the way that it goes. And so if you've never checked that out, it's on our YouTube channel somewhere as well. The pilot episode.
World Horseplayers. There's a little sizzle reel, and there's a full episode. And just to piggyback on some important points you were making about ways of getting change, I'll tell you what. Like, we get annoyed sometimes by the super grumps on Twitter and in this game, and sometimes they don't present themselves terribly well. But I will say this: it is important to have people. It is important to have people pushing the conversation in a way in that regard, because if nothing else, it makes us seem like completely reasonable to industry people, as opposed to having us be. We have some ideas that I feel like in racing 10 years ago we would have been branded nuts, and now we're like able to be part of these conversations, and the more extreme versions of it, I think, make our views a little bit more palatable. And then the other idea, just to sum it up, is you and I have always been of the view that you're going to have more success being in the tent peeing outward than being out of the tent peeing inward. Racing is very, very good at cutting off and ignoring the out of the tent peeing inward types, and I don't see the point. I'd rather be in the tent. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, just you can accomplish more in there. You can accomplish more in there. I mean, think about and I, not to take a whole lot of credit, but just to think about the conversations we had with Keeneland and with Jim Goodman about a higher minimum pick sequence, right? We had the conversation. We had a little bit of a different idea. We didn't get that idea done because it happened right in the middle of COVID. But then, because of our relationship with Jim and us not yelling at Keeneland all the time and screaming at Keeneland all the time and carrying on and pointing out the mistakes that they made with raising takeout and letting them be kind of forgiven for that mistake, and they righted that ship. They did this thing that is horse player friendly, and it is innovative because we were in the tent peeing out, not the other way around. And I think
you're talking about that all turf pick 3, just to clarify.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think a lot of times you just have to, I agree with 60-70% of the stuff that these people say, the grumpy folks. I agree with it, but you're not gonna get anything accomplished screaming at everyone, telling them that they're stupid and that you're smart, because people stop listening. You know what I mean?
It's not a good communication strategy trying to demonstrate all the time how much smarter you are than other people. It just doesn't.
Right.
It might even be true. It doesn't. It's not going to. It's not going to help in certain instances. Let's talk a little bit about this year's Derby Trail, the name on the marquee for this show, and we'll start off with a little explanation. So, in past years, I mean, we started the show. Matt Bernier and I started the show in 2014. So we've had a lot of Derby prep seasons, and we have always been less forward in putting forward early Derby thoughts and whatnot than any other. Granted, we were the only podcast in 2014, but as more and more shows have come, they've typically gone in that direction, and we have not. And part of that is just because we come at this from a gambling point of view, and you and I have discussed at length, we don't think it's a good thing to get, married, though it seems like you are this year already, which I'm curious to talk to you about. But we try not to get too married to Derby horses or Derby opinions too early in the process. But the people have spoken. We do listener surveys every year. We look at our metrics, and the reality is, anytime a show has Derby in the title, it gets an order of magnitude more views and downloads. People request the content. So this year we're going to do it a little bit differently. We're not going to be presenting Derby lists exactly, but we've done, I think, a good job. The Erics have done a fantastic job on the site. I love this concept they've come up with drafting their Derby teams. You can find that over at inthemoneypodcast.com. Obviously, after the key preps, we're going to do our Derby draft again. But I thought, in a way, we did a show that was very successful last fall with our way too early Breeders' Cup predictions. I thought it might be fun to do a show now with our way too early Kentucky Derby predictions, where we can at least just give our early thoughts on some of these horses who we think are likely to develop. I wasn't going to hold your feet to the fire about who's going to win, though it sounds like I can, which I'm excited about. But yeah, so that's the idea behind the show. And it sounds like you like me have been like, let's not do too much Derby. But I think as you get more and more in the mainstream and see what our listeners, what our customers, what people who like racing want, I think it's time for us to do a show like this.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would, if I didn't feel the way I felt, I would be doing the same thing we always do and being like, I don't know, I'll wait until the 9 furlong preps.
Because that would make a horrible show, by the way.
I know. But that's how look, the background of that is that I made mistakes falling in love with mile and 16th race horses and 1-turn mile horses. I've fallen in love, and then it comes to the 9 furlong race. I'm already in love with them, and even if they win the 9 furlong race, it's not what I want leading into the 10 furlong Kentucky Derby. With that said, I told a friend the other day, there's 2 horses that can win this Derby, and I hate to waste your time or burst your bubble.
Yeah.
the one that still has some upside is the one that we'll still see what happens is Zandon. He probably should have won the mile and an eighth race. I'm gonna go blank on the name.
Risen Star.
No, the 2-year-old. What's the 2-year-old race?
The Remsen.
Remsen should have won the Remsen. Probably should have got put up there, and he had a horrible trip in the Risen Star. I'm excited to see this horse run a mile and an eighth. In a little Zandon background, I haven't said this yet to anyone, but this is a situation where I actually caught a ride. I was at Belmont, and I caught a ride to the track with Chad the day that Zandon debuted. And Chad had said that, like, this horse is pretty good. He's kind of tricking me in the mornings, but I think he could win today. And he went off at like 4-1, I think, that day, or 5-1. And he won. It was, remember, in that he was stuck in behind horses, and he looked like he was just eating a bunch of dirt, like he was going to stop. And then he came back on again, and then he started training like a good horse again. And Chad said, "This is my Derby horse."
What did he mean tricking me in the mornings? What explain for the uninitiated?
Just that, like, he wasn't sure how good he was.
Mm-hmm.
Just because, sometimes horses just lay it out in the morning, how good they are. Some of them are smart. They kind of protect themselves. They don't really go too hard in the morning. Little Allen Iverson, if you will. and then Chad kind of expressed to me after that win that the horse kind of turned the corner. And when someone tells you that this their Derby horse, they've just won a maiden race and they turn the corner, you then do what? You call someone that
phone calls.
That lives somewhere where, in a civilized place, where you could do something with something like that. Basically 100-1 is where I am in that position. So
fantastic.
I'm also personally rooting as well, because after he wins the Louisiana Derby, I'm assuming that's where he'll go next. After he wins Louisiana Derby, he's going to be 10-1.
He is not going in the Louisiana Derby.
He's going to New York.
Bluegrass, it sounds.
Bluegrass. That's right. I forgot about that. I did know that. Yes, Bluegrass. Same as is highly motivated last year. That's right.
But now here's the interesting one. Let's talk about this first. I know you have more to say on this topic, but I think that Smile Happy is another runner who has a very similar profile to Zandon. They both had difficult trips against the flow in the Risen Star. Both stayed on like good horses who are going to do better the next time. I think it's interesting to see them reopposing. Do you share any of the enthusiasm you have for Zandon for Smile Happy?
Sure. Right. If I'm not so I'm at that point now where I need Smile Happy to show it to me. I kind of already know that Zandon's going to take that next step forward, like just based on the way that he ran, the progressiveness of him. He's not going to have any problem with the added distance, so on and so forth. If Smile Happy beats him on the square, then I have no problem divorcing myself from this idea that Zandon has to be that horse. I'll live happily knowing that ticket's in my pocket if he goes on to win, but I have no problem changing my allegiance to Smile Happy. That's the idea that we kind of talked about with why we don't do these Derby lists, is because what happens is if you marry yourself today, then it's hard to divorce yourself after the 9 furlong prep and you find yourself on a bad horse for the Kentucky Derby. So I have no problem. If Smile Happy impresses me, runs a triple-digit figure, and improves, no problems. But obviously, I feel like Zandon's going to continue to kind of make that progressive step forward, and I actually think that Chad's training style is built to actually win a Kentucky Derby. The way that he keeps horses on the bridle, he keeps them under wraps, under control within themselves. He's not letting horses just kind of freewheel and like a Bob Baffert type. Yeah, they finish their races, and so we'll see what happens with him. But he's not even my top pick. If I had to pick right now, and my Triple Crown joke earlier was about someone else.
Okay, should we go there? I was going to bring up Epicenter because he's a natural one to pivot to. He is competing this weekend. Let's do Epicenter real quick, and then we'll go back and you give us the winner. Are you anti Epicenter? That was an easy win the last day, but he was so with the flow. And my issue, you used the key term to me when you were talking about those horses we just talked about, Zandon and Smile Happy, being progressive. When I look at horses that are probably at the top of a lot of Derby lists, like Epicenter, like Classic Causeway, my issue is I feel like compared to Zandon and Smile Happy, they're just maybe a little bit exposed, and they've had it maybe a little bit too much their own way. I still think they're, serious players, and if I were to make a top 10, I can't imagine they wouldn't be on it. But just from like my own point of view, I'm not as interested. Though I think Epicenter, it's one of these cases of done nothing wrong and certainly going to look awfully good at probably around even money in the Louisiana Derby on Saturday. You have any thoughts on either of those runners?
Epicenter, I'm just looking at this before I say it, but I'll still say it even if I look at it and I don't agree with myself anymore.
You're looking some stuff.
Epicenter reminds me of Gunrunner, right?
That's my praise.
He was not overly, he wasn't like that standout type, but he won all of his preps and he ran well and he was competitive in the Kentucky Derby, and then he turned out to be a really good horse. I think that's kind of what we'll see with Epicenter. The problem with Epicenter is the horse that I love has the same style, and a horse that you mentioned who I don't love, Classic Causeway, has one way of going. So Epicenter is not going to make the lead in this Kentucky Derby. He's just not fast enough early. Now, can he rate and can he finish his races going 1.25 miles? Sure, there's a possibility there. But then you have to go to the final number, and I just don't think he's fast enough from a final number standpoint to hold off the talented closers and to run by the horse that I absolutely do love. So he's not a horse that I believe will win this race, but I do think he's a useful horse, that type of horse you want to use in your supers, a horse that, depending on what he does in his next start, will probably be 12-1, that type of horse. Because he's got that style, trained by Steve Asmussen. He should be able to kind of get around there. But no, I don't need him yet. He's just not fast enough.
I think the time has come for you to make your reveal of your horse. And what's interesting is I don't know who you mean necessarily. I mean, I could make some guesses, but I'm not 100% sure who you mean. So yeah, let's have it. Who's your horse you think is going to win the Preakness with you in attendance and go on to having a big shot at the Triple Crown?
I love Forbidden Kingdom. I mean, love Forbidden Kingdom. This horse is a horse, and I thought even about like comparing, like looking at like what Justified did, and I just don't think, I'm going to double check. This is a horse that his final numbers are that triple digit fast stuff you want to see, right? You love the stuff you love to see, but also his pace figures are nuts. How fast this horse runs early at every call and then gets that final number, doesn't really slow down. This is exactly the type of horse that I love in the Kentucky Derby, that other people, not everyone, but some people will be like, oh, he doesn't want to go that far. He's a sprinter. Oh, he's going to get tired. He doesn't want to go 1.25 miles, all of these things. But the way that he's run his 1.16 races, with running as fast as he is running early and then still earning the final time he's earning, he is absolutely going to get 1.25 miles. I don't care if he's tired, if he's staggering home, he's going to be so far in front that they're not going to be able to catch him. And also, conversely, if he doesn't want to go that fast early and he wants to go, let's just say he's going hundreds early, right? In his 1.16 races. In pace figure terms. Let's say he's going hundreds early. He can go 60s, still make the lead comfortably. And because he went hundreds going 1.16 miles and still finish his races, he'll still finish his race going 1.16 miles, because that's what pace figures are. Pace figures are nothing but energy. It's all energy. And if you look at it as that, we talked about it with Newspaper Record back in the day, it's a fuel tank, right? If you can run 100 early and still finish 100, you have a bigger fuel tank than someone who wants to go 60 early and finish the race with an 80 or whatever. That's a smaller tank. This horse has a huge tank, and if is able to make the lead going 60 or 70 or whatever it is, it's going to finish his race. I love this horse. I love the horse on 1.8 miles in the Santa Anita Derby. And he's going to pass. And I'm saying it now because I believe that after he passed that test, he's going to be the horse that everyone will lean on, and he'll be the favorite. And so I want to say it. That's one of the reasons I want to say it now before.
I love it.
Because I think he's going to run off the screen going 1.8 miles, and then I think he'll be favored in the Derby. I think he'll win the Derby, and I think he'll win the Preakness. if he keeps doing what he's been doing, right?
It's interesting because the last race showed me so much. I even said in my write-up before the last run that in any other trainer's hands, I would have thought he had this bit of a, and Matt and I talked about it too on the show, I thought he had a little bit of a runoff type of a look. But he showed so much last time in being able to just be a little bit more measured and a little less headstrong early. And as you mentioned, he still went ridiculously fast early, and he still finished faster than he'd run early. And it just showed a totally new dimension. Now, I did get a little panicky with the story of the missed workout and the having a little fever. But he's apparently back on track. Mandella was like clowning around about it like he thought it was no big deal. And I think for me, this is a case of in Mandella, I trust. If he's not worried, I'm not worried. But it did give me a little bit of pause just because we've heard those stories where, you know, we've heard horsemen say you can't even have a bad day between, you know, January and May when it comes to a race like the Kentucky Derby. But there's exceptions to every rule, and I think this horse might be one. And I'm so happy to hear what you have to say, JK, because I got a little reach out a couple of days ago from a man we refer to on the show as Quincy Jones, who knew I was over in the UK. And with the help of some associates over there, Quincy and I now have a position on this horse. We locked in at 12-1, not the 100-1 that you have on Zandon, but my logic was exactly what you said. I expect him to gallop in the Santa Anita Derby and go to Louisville as the 4-1 favorite. So why not have that 12-1? And I guess there's a world in which, depending on what happens, he could be quite a bit shorter than 4-1 as a favorite in the Kentucky Derby. What do you think?
Yeah, my thought was 3-1, and I want a commission because I told Quincy Jones to call you because Quincy and I were talking. And Quincy was like, man, I want to get down, like, da-da-da-da. And I was like, Pete's over there. Call Pete. I think Pete got 14-1. It turns out you got 12. So I'll take a commission on that. But, yeah, I mean, and here's the thing. If you're missing the workout situation, you know, and I know Jack Christopher's not going to make any of these races, but that's a problem, right? Like you're playing from behind. You're trying to get that prep race in. You're trying to do this. I'm not worried about Forbidden Kingdom. Forbidden Kingdom ran in August. He ran in October. He ran in November. He ran in January. He ran in March. He's going to run again in April. Like
right.
I'm not worried about his base. His base will be there for missing. You know, if he had a fever, he missed a work, whatever. You know, whatever. I'm not concerned with that. He'll have plenty of time to get it together after, and just the way he runs. He's going to run himself into shape in the Santa Anita Derby. Just the way that he runs. Any work that he missed, it's going to be null by the time the first Saturday of May rolls around.
And Mandella even made the point. It wasn't like a key work. It was just the first, you know, let's stretch our legs after, and just made it sound like it was made up for. And I don't think of Mandella as one who, you know, he's if anything, he's overly conservative. Right. You know, we've seen some of the decisions he's made with horses that have made us go, over the years, where it's, you know, he's just looking out for, he's looking out for his horses. He does right by his horses first and foremost. So I don't think there's any way in which he's forcing it with a runner like this. Remember we heard some stories about Omaha Beach that, you know, in any other trainer's hands, they probably just would have, you know, tried to take a shot with the little setback that he had. But so, like, I love his conservatism, if that's the right way of using that in this context, makes me all the more excited about the horse. I would have preferred that there is one book that I couldn't get down at, did have the 14. So you're not wrong about that, but it's, you know, sometimes these prices are a little bit phantom, and the key thing is being able to get down a halfway decent bet over there. And fortunately, we were able to do that, and I'm glad to see our stars are aligned. Now, one thing that's going to make this 12-1 price look a little bit better to me, sort of the elephant in the room of this year's Kentucky Derby, what in the blue hell is going to happen with all these Baffert runners? What are you hearing?
I haven't heard anything. I've long believed, just with no information, that there's entirely too much money on the line, entirely too many smart people on the line to not feel as if they had a way that they were going to be able to kind of put a hold on everything and get the horses eligible and be able to run. Because, you know, they're not, you know, if you look at the kind of the SF Avengers operation, right? The one that brought a charlatan and authentic before he was sold and all of those things, is like, their whole game plan is spend all this money, make a stallion, make a couple stallions, make as many stallions as possible. That's their game plan. Well, you don't do that and then say, oh, we don't need the Derby.
Right.
You kind of need the Derby to be able to do that. So I just felt as if they had some kind of plan, and it doesn't appear that that's the case. Well, at least
unless
yet, I haven't seen it yet.
Unless the plan is, sorry, Bob, we tried everything we could standing by you. We're going to switch these horses.
But they got to, if that's what they're going to do, they got to switch before the next round, because you're not getting points if he's training them. So they're going to have to do that. We're going to answer this question in a couple of weeks, because if you're going to run one of them in the Santa Anita Derby, at that point you're going to have to make that decision. You can't make it after, because then you're going to have to try to retroactively get points, and it seems like Churchill's going to. They're putting their foot down, and they're not going to allow it. Right, wrong, or indifferent. And so I would suspect that, we'll hear a lot. I saw yesterday that they denied the stay for the suspension, which is supposed to start, I believe, April 4th, if I'm not mistaken.
That sounds right.
So I think we'll start to hear something in the next couple of weeks of what's going to happen. It feels like maybe a lot of the owners were probably kind of banking on that. And now that that's over, let's see what the decisions they make. Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate. But, and it's like he's got like a super monster that I'm like really upset I'm not going to see.
Well, Messier would be the one. Messier is the one who I think, assuming Messier, I kind of, in liking the 12-1 on Forbidden Kingdom, part of thinking there's like real equity in that number is the idea that none of these Bafferts are going to run. Now, it doesn't, I mean, Corniche, he hasn't been anywhere. He's still listed in the betting high up, but I don't even know if he's worked.
I'm looking right now to see if he has.
But Messier would be the one, based on what we've seen, who has that, Baffert Derby look. Seems like a horse that, is going to be, unless something just dramatically bad were to happen, assuming he could run. I mean, he's going to be a single-digit price, and getting him out there with the big, he has at least one huge figure. And I mean, he just looked really professional last time too. Like, he wasn't a horse I had taken that seriously, but I think if he were eligible to run, would be on everybody's top 10, wouldn't he?
Yeah, but also, at the same time, if you really think about it, and I have no information, if they wanted to, for whatever reason, just stay by his side, they want to stand up to what they feel is whatever, whatever. They want to stand by Bob's side. If they decide that, it's not crazy that they just say, forget it. We're not going to run in the Derby. We're just running the Preakness. It's not crazy to the horse's future. It's not crazy to make him a stallion, right? Because, I mean, Justify's Kentucky Derby alone isn't what made him a stallion, right? It was his Preakness and his Belmont that made him a stallion. American Pharoah, the same. It wasn't just the Derby. It was the other things too. And it's like, and Gunrunner's Derby didn't make him a stallion.
Right.
Arrogate's Derby that didn't exist didn't make him a stallion. So there's a world, I suppose, in which you could, if they wanted to do that for whatever reason they wanted to do it, they could ride it out with him and just show up in the Preakness.
Yeah, it's an entirely possible scenario that would make me feel good in terms of the bet, the 12-1 bet on Forbidden Kingdom. Did you find anything about Corniche while we were poking around there?
I looked. I don't think he's working, but sometimes that where I looked isn't the most dependable when it comes to that. So just double check that. But as far as I know, it doesn't look like he's worked. But don't check.
We'll give a plug right now. Actually, the best place to get Derby doings news. Our man Jay Privman over at drf.com. If you go on that Kentucky Derby tab there, and I'm sure we'll have Jay on during the run up. He's been just a huge asset. We had him. I don't know if you got to hear the Eclipse show we did this year, but he's done some great stuff with us. And obviously he's on top of all this news, and he and I guess it's Marty McGee who now does the Derby doings with him over there at drf.com. That's a great place to get up to the minute info, because you'll find good handicapping stuff on our site, but we're not the place to go. InTheMoneyPodcast.com, not the place to go for news, but follow Jay on Twitter and over at drf.com, and you'll see everything happening there. There's obviously a bunch of other horses to talk about. You seem pretty dialed down into those too, but is there anybody else who's caught your eye?
I love Brian Lynch. I'm hoping Classic Causeway takes a lot of money because he's just not fast enough. He's just slow. So that's a horse I'm really paying attention to. I'm hoping that horse takes money. We'll see what happens. Look, what I've said about Zandon and about Forbidden Kingdom are I feel that way, and that's likely not going to change about those two based on what I see. I mean, obviously, if Forbidden Kingdom just absolutely hits a wall at the 8th pole going a mile and 8, then obviously I have to change my mind. But I also reserve the right to see kind of what other horses do. I am a pace figure and final figure person, because what I've realized over time, even in lower level races, figures and pace figures are all about energy, and that's what matters in these races. It's energy. How much do you have? And using your energy early, to me, if you run the same figure, you run 100, but you use your energy early rather than using it late, I upgrade the early. Because you go out and go for a jog and jog for 10 minutes and then sprint home for 2, or sprint for 2 minutes and then jog for 10, and tell me which one hurts worse.
Yeah.
Right. And so,
and we're talking dirt racing here specifically, and
dirt racing here.
Agree with.
And so I am going to, my whole point of all of that was, if someone freaks and does something energy special, then they'll move right into the conversation. That's the biggest issue I think people have when it comes to the Derby, is falling in love and marrying yourself.
Yeah,
because everyone wants to have picked the Derby winner in January. I picked the Derby horse. I got it.
There's something worth more than money to most horse players who have the Derby winner and have it early. And it's it's not our game, but I get it. There's income and there's emotional income. And a lot of people play this game much more for the emotional income than for the actual income. And that's cool. I mean, hell, that's good for those of us who are actually trying to make money doing this thing, to be honest with you. But I do think that's part of the reason why, the Derby has its mystique to horse players. And there is something, to this day I talk about Silver Charm, and the famous story of before Susan and I were even dating. It was, this would have been, I don't know, March of 1997. And she tells me she's going to the Kentucky Derby. And I say, you got to bet this horse Silver Charm. And, it's a quarter of a century later, and I'm telling that story. Like, it is worth.
97, I was in 9th grade.
You weren't that young. I mean, 9th grade, that's almost a man.
I was in 9th grade. I was wearing Jinko jeans in 97. How about that?
Fanny pack? Was the fanny pack in effect?
No, I didn't get down like that. Like a Tommy Hilfiger or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the Todd Pletcher contingent, because he's got some really interesting horses, none of whom right now I think have the resume, but a couple of whom are maybe that one big effort from stamping themselves as major players in the Kentucky Derby. Let's start with the one who has the tied-in form with your man Zandon. That's Mo Donegal. This is a horse who came back and had a really rough go of things in the Holy Bull, a race that did not. I mean, to me, I just got the impression that he wanted nothing to do with Gulfstream watching that race. What do I know? Pletcher was going to run him back there in the Fountain of Youth. He spiked a fever as well, also spiked a 12 post, but I think it was more the fever that kept him out of things. He will now be coming back. I think I saw in the Wood around that course and distance that he's had success at before. This is a horse that would not surprise me if it's on my Derby shortlist after whatever he does in the Wood. Do you like Mo Donegal? Why do you prefer Zandon if not?
I mean, I like Todd, right? I think anytime we get to mention how many dirt stallions Todd's created, it's enough to give him his dirt horses extra credit. They improve. They continue to improve. And he obviously is a talented horse. Yeah, it's I hate to be dodgy. It's just wait and see. If he runs well in the Wood, gets triple digity with his number, absolutely he's in the mix. But if he shows up and runs a 92, runs second, or runs a 93 and wins or whatever, I don't really need him on that day. I need a triple digit. I need a triple digit to or close to a triple digit, or a 98 with a trip to kind of get excited about a horse. Same with Zandon, on to be fair. I mean, Zandon, if he runs a 92 and wins the Bluegrass, I'm not. It doesn't really work for me.
What about Charge It? Now, this is a runner. When we had, before his first race, we had Todd Pletcher on the Gulfstream Park Players podcast, and he spoke to Double D and me about how much you could just hear in his voice how much he liked this horse. Ran huge that day. It was a tough luck second. Came back and won easy. Won easy with, you talked about the energy distribution. He had a very good setup to run a very big figure, which he did. But now I guess he'll be going to the Florida Derby off just a maiden win. It's one of these things where it's all about the price, but I am interested in him based on the ability he's shown and also having that soft factor of hearing Todd Pletcher speak to me personally about how well he was doing. Probably part of the reason you're so keen on Zandon. When you hear them talk about it and they get excited, it's hard not to get excited. But what do you think? Would you give him any count in the Florida Derby? Or, I could also, even though I'm telling you how much I like him, if they make a maiden the favorite against some other serious runners in there, we might have to fade him that day.
From a speed figure standpoint. But I think a lot of times what people get carried away with is like, I don't have to bet the Florida Derby. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't have to be right in the Florida Derby. I just care about hitting the pick 5 on Florida Derby day if I decide to play it because I like a horse in the turf race 2 races before that. You know what I mean? Like, so basically, I just want to I want to see who else is in there. I like him more than White Abario or whatever, like just based on a speed figure standpoint and who's training him. This horse is going to take another step forward. He ran well going the 1-turn mile. He finished in an up line, meaning that like his pace figures got better at every stop, which is good. Suggests that he'll go further. He'll go that mile and an eighth. I'm not worried about that at all, especially the way that Todd trains him. So, yeah, he's the type of horse with a good performance can throw himself into the mix because where he is from a speed figure standpoint, another step forward puts him triple digity. And in the right hands, he's a horse that I wouldn't have a problem with going on with. It's a lot to ask, but it's definitely doable. We've seen that before.
You mentioned White Abario. Is Saffie Joseph going to have to cross you off the holiday card list for your dismissive comments about his 4.5 length winner of the Holy Bull in a decent time figure?
Yeah, no. I like Saffie. I respect Saffie. We're just talking about a horse that I didn't think the figure was fast enough to win the Derby yet. Going to have to take another step forward, and he possibly could. He's had some time in between his race. Something tells me that Saffie Joseph likely has a Kentucky Derby with his name on it at some point. But I also don't ever feel like it's a knock on any trainer when you say that Todd's better than them. Like, it's not a knock on anybody because Todd is without a doubt one of the greatest of all times. And especially when it comes to dirt races and 3-year-olds. And, I think it's okay to say Todd and Bob are the best. And if that's offensive to you, then like Google it. You know what I mean?
That's the pull. When we get our act together and eventually have like pull out quotes that go on social media, that's going to be the one. That's going to be one for the show. So you like trip handicapping, as do I. You were talking before about energy distribution and figures, and I agree that's the main lens I put over races, and then probably the secondary lens for me that I put over races when I'm handicapping, studying the form, whatever you want to call it, is internal pace matchups, looking at who's participating today and how that's going to affect said energy distribution. But trip handicapping, I still reflexively, sometimes I'll see a horse and I'll see the journey they get, and pretty much automatically, I'm going to find a way to include that horse whenever they show up next. This is the story, JK, of me and Emmanuel coming out of that Fountain of Youth Stakes. I know he probably doesn't look fast enough at the moment to have an impact in a race like the Florida Derby, but as long as it's not a silly short price, I've got to include him. I just thought he thought that everything go against him. This is a horse that I like that day. I think is a cool horse. I think there's more in the tank. And Todd Pletcher.
Well, it's something that I'm sure someone else said it before. Mike Maloney said it, but I remember Mike Maloney saying it, so I'll just give him credit for the quote. I don't really think that there's trips in slow races or, not even slow races. I don't think there's trips for a slow horse. If that makes sense. Like, his figure was not fast. And yes, he had trouble, but he's got to make up a lot. And the race before that wasn't particularly fast either.
Right.
So it's almost like because he had such a rough trip and because of the new age horse player, everyone knows he had a bad trip. It ain't like 1987 where like you had to sit there and watch the race on a VCR at the racetrack to find out he had a bad trip. Everyone's going to know it, and they're going to bet the horse because of that. So I actually think the value kind of sometimes bad trips, the value is opposite. They're underlays.
Yeah.
So
we used to call them on the show international bad trip horses.
Right.
And it could be that that's what he is. It's hard to know though sometimes in these Triple Crown preps how the market's going to react. But I respect that point of view. There's two other runners I want to mention to you, and I know you got to get out of here soon. But finish your thought on Emmanuel.
No, I was just going to say that there's no bad trips in slow races. But let's just say a horse runs a 94, then comes into a race, bad trip, slow race, runs a 79. I've seen the 94 before, so I know that that's there. So now I'm okay with the fact that, yes, he could progress forward in that next start off that trip. I'll support a horse like that. But when a horse runs like an 84, then gets a bad trip and runs an 81, like, where are we going to go from there? You're going to go back to the 84, 88 maybe if you're getting crazy? So that's what I mean by the bad trip, slow race.
No, it makes sense. I suspect there's a little bit more under the hood with this horse, and I'm hoping he's a price where I can keep him on side. I want to talk about simplification, because here's a horse who just won a race impressively despite not having a particularly good or smooth trip in the Fountain of Youth. Had a terrible trip the time before that. Is this a horse when you're looking at you're seeing big potential improvement in?
You said simplification?
I did.
I'm just looking at the figure right now. Yeah, I mean, he's one he's got faster numbers in the past. So although the last race, and he had a little bit of trouble, wasn't that fast, I could see him kind of taking another step forward, right? Not this time. A couple of not this times, huh? Jeez, I had a future on that horse that didn't work out. Yeah, no, I mean, he's a horse. I mean, I would be higher on him than I would be on a horse like Guido Barrio.
And then one horse I want to mention that's just my goofy long shot idea. We're running out of time. We actually could have done more on this. I'm impressed. It's good to remember for future shows. But I'm still not giving up as a horse to potentially make an impact in the Kentucky Derby. If looking at the current prices, if you forced me to make a bet, and you said you can't do Forbidden Kingdom because you've already done that. Oviatt Class is listed as 100 to 1. This is a horse, he is not fast enough, obviously. But from the way he's run and the trouble that he's had and just the way he shapes, he's a little bit interesting of a horse to me, maybe getting out of California. And, I don't even think he's going to necessarily be able to get the points to run in the Kentucky Derby. But he's still a horse I think is a little tiny bit interesting, and I wanted to at least mention on the show.
Closing into a slow pace last time on the dirt, those are things that I can get into because the final number is never going to be that fast in a slow pace race. They can only come home so fast. So there could be hidden energy situations in a race like that. You know what I mean? Like you exactly. Think about going outside and you're going on a 10-minute run, but you walk for the first 3 minutes and then you sprint home. There's a lot of energy used there, but your final time is always going to be crappy because you walked for 3 minutes.
Yeah.
So, he's a horse he's got to get faster, but there's a story as to how he could get faster.
Command Performance is a horse I'll just mention. Super Fast is one that I know Matt Bernier was very interested in for the Derby from his first runs. Got to get that elusive maiden win. Maybe it's too late for the Derby, but maybe this is a Travers type horse if he can develop for Pletcher.
Yeah, I'm mad at him because I needed him at 1-5 for a score. So.
Was that the pay leg?
Yeah.
Oh, that's brutal. That is absolutely brutal. I can't remember who beat him. Was it a good horse?
No, there was a one horse that wired him.
Oh no, that's rough.
Yeah.
Any other horses that I haven't brought up that you feel like deserve a quick shout on this way too early Derby prediction show before we send it home?
The horse that Murillo I think is interesting. We'll see how he comes back and runs. Right.
Gotham winner, presumably headed to the wood.
Yeah. I mean, he's interesting. He's got to run faster, but if he does, he will. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. I mean, Asmussen having that's a hole in the resume for sure, right? Oh yeah.
Any other weird ones? Anything funky that you're thinking of? A long priced outsider to maybe make the frame, or a horse you're interested in the next round of preps? Anything else?
No, I'm going to save that for the 9 furlongs. I'll save that kind of weird horse for the 9 furlongs.
Fair enough. You came strong with some good opinions here, and I'm happy that they align with mine. That's always nice. Great getting a chance to catch up with you, JK. Stay on that Peloton. I'm going to be on there later today if you want to. Maybe we can face off a little bit. What do you?
Yeah, no, seriously. Like 4-ish. Let's do it.
Who's your girl or guy on Peloton? Who do you like the best?
That's a sore subject. Let's say I like Alex Toussaint.
Alex is awesome. Yeah, he's so fun.
Yeah.
Did you do the rides to greatness?
No. I don't
you got to do his rides to greatness. They're fantastic.
Oh. Okay,
that's
Alex
at his best. Emma Lovewell, I'll give a shout to her, but my number one is Hannah Corbin. I like her energy.
There you go.
And she plays the old rock and roll. So, we get
You're a rock and roll man. All right.
JK, thank you for your time today. Thank you, producer Craig, for getting this up on video and dealing with all the posting and stuff. I will send that description along. Thanks to our founding partners, 10 Strike Racing. We always love to root for the purple and black around here. And, of course, the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation, trfinc.org/players. That's the place to go and to be able to give to the great work that they do, helping humans and helping horses. This show has been a production of In the Money Media. Our business manager is Drew Coatney. Our chief creative officer is Jonathon Kinchen. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatale. May you win all your photos.